What's up guys, Jack here with Jack Flash Auto Repair, working on my 300ZX again. Today I'm gonna go ahead and pull my subframe apart. It's already out. I'm gonna pull all the bushings out, pull the control arms off, pull all the brake lines off, pull the brakes off. It's gonna be completely bare. I think this is gonna be a really satisfying job, so I'm ready to get started on it. I'm gonna go ahead and open my door and pull the subframe in. Here is my rear subframe. And it's not in awful shape really, but all the bushings are 34 years old now. As you can see, there's really no major rust. It's just all that stuff kind of around the edges here. So I'm gonna just take this as far apart as I can. I gotta do all the diff bushings. So the only thing that I don't think I'm going to fully replace on this is the differential and axles themselves. I'm gonna reseal the diff. I'm gonna try to paint the diff as well and get it not looking so rusty. I might even paint the shafts on these axles just so I don't have the whole thing, have the whole subframe painted and then have these rusty parts on it. The goal is to have this looking like a completely new custom suspension setup, rather than an old stock been sitting in a forest setup. I've got it on these car dollies. That's what the whole car was sitting on. Really helped me move this subframe out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and start tearing this thing down. Okay, so I've got the brakes, all the control arms off, all that. I'm gonna go ahead and take my axles off now. Then once I get the axles off, I'm gonna take these lower control arms off. And the only thing on there will be the differential. And I'll go ahead and pull that out. These lines will come with the knuckles whenever I pull them out. And then I will probably disassemble these rear brakes later. Got both my hubs out over there, all the arms out, everything is out of this for the most part. I've got it tilted up on the back side with the underside pointing towards me so I can get the sway bar bolts out right here. Once I get those out, I'm going to take out the mount bolts right here for the differential and then work on getting the rest of the differential mounting bolts out and then pull the diff. And this thing should be pretty much bare after that. It might be a couple here's and there's to take off, but for the most part it'll be done. Got everything off the subframe besides the bushings, so we are going to start the process of trying to get those out. I'm preparing myself for an absolute nightmare on these. Gotta get these two differential bushings out, these two subframe bushings, and then there will be two more subframe bushings right here and right here. That'll help get it real hot. Alright, so we ended up doing something a little different and using the drill to get that loose and then pried that piece out down there in two pieces. I actually used the Sawzall to cut that in half so it was easier to pry each piece out. Now we're going to repeat the process for the other four and then start cutting these collars out so we can fold it in on itself and knock it all the way out. So here's one of the bushings to give you an idea of how much shit it takes to get these out. And there's one bushing right there. And there is another one. You can see this is that middle part. And now all that's left to do is cut the outside collar off and fold it in on itself. Did the same thing for those up there. Now the only ones still in the subframe are these differential bushings right here. Alright, so I just flipped it over. I've got the rear bushings and sleeves completely out, and boy was that fucking annoying. And now I get to do it 2 more times with these, so I'm gonna knock that out. Alright, so I've got all those bushings out. There are some spots on here where I cut a little bit too far. The right here is the main one. I cut all the way through. You can see my finger on the other side of that hole. It's the same way down here on the bottom. I just cut entirely too far on that. I am going to go ahead and throw some welds on there. I'm not a professional welder. I'm actually pretty new at welding, and I've just got a MIG welder, so these aren't probably going to be the prettiest welds in the world, but I do own a grinder, and this thing is getting powder coated, so they're not going to be seen at the end of the day. I'm going to go ahead and start with this one right here, since it is the worst out of all of them. You can see here, right there, and right there, that's where it went through. So I'm just gonna build up this little corner right here, do the same thing down there, smooth it all out. I don't even feel that bad because these are the factory welds. Like, mine can't be that much worse than that. I've got my subframe all cleaned up here. I've got my welding stuff ready to go. I've got my ground all, cleaned up, so I should have a nice good ground, good connection. It's time to start welding on this crack and hopefully filling it in and making it look like it never happened. So let's try and see what we can get done. You can see it's not looking too bad. Little ghetto, but nothing a little grinder and paint won't fix. Alright, so I've got those cracks all cleaned up, filled in with weld. They're not perfect, but they look a hell of a lot better than they did, so now that that is taken care of, I am going to go ahead and get my hydraulic press in here so we can press these 2 bushings out. I've got to save those cups that are in there. Got to save those for the new differential bushings, so I'm going to make sure to try to get those out without fucking them up, because I guess they are hard to find online. Alright, so we just brought my hydraulic press up here, and you can see that the subframe sits on there kind of crooked, so we're going to put some stuff underneath this side to make it sit a little bit more perpendicular to the pressing part, and then we're going to start pushing these bushings out. Alright, so I've got a 36mm socket. It doesn't have to be a 36mm socket, just something that's going to fit this diameter right here well. And then I've got this other socket I'm using as a spacer, just so I don't have to pump my jack as much. So I'm gonna line that up the best I can and then start pressing it out. So now those are out. Just press them both out. Now all the inside part's out. I'm just gonna cut the outside with a Sawzall and fold it in on itself. Pull that collar out and that'll be it. Yup. So there you see kind of how I did it. Cut that slit and then just hammer it in on itself. It gets fucking loose. Falls right out. There you go, just like that. Yeah, there you go. Now the only thing that I have to do is take that bushing and other one's right there, so I got to get all this rubber off of it. The first thing my mind goes to is just burning it off because the metal's not going to burn away, but I might try to cut off as much as I can, see how hard it is. Okay guys, so I just got something that worked super well. As you can see, it is super clean inside and out. What I did here was I got some all thread, washer and nut in there, washer and nut on the other side, tighten them together, get that stuck to the end, and now you can spin it, which already makes your job a lot easier, a lot less scrubbing. You know, get it down to how I showed you before, to where it's at this point right here. You put it on the end of your drill like that, and you start melting it with the torch, and once it's all melted, when you hit it with the wire brush, all the shit will just fly right off and you get a cup that looks real good like that. Alright, and as you can see, looks perfect now. Now that I've got this subframe mostly done here, got all the bushings out and everything, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up all this mess from what it took to get that out. You can see there is plenty of stuff out, lots of tools. So I'm gonna put all that away, and then I am going to work on getting this gas tank cleaned up. Got my gas tank over here ready to clean up. So I just sprayed this whole thing down. I scrubbed the whole thing, top and bottom. I'm gonna take it outside and power wash it. I'm gonna try not to get a ton of water on the inside, but I am going to blow it out with air either way afterwards. Just got this all sprayed off. A lot of the paint chipped off. Kind of was expecting that. Planned on putting a couple patches of paint on here anyways. That is what the bottom looks like after. I'll go ahead and flip it over. Show you what the top looks like. And there is the top. There is just a little bit of water inside. I emptied out as much as I could, but I'm gonna go ahead and take my Milwaukee blower now and just blow dry this. Alright, so I've got that all finished up, done with the power wash, and it may not be perfect, but it does look a lot better than when we started. Now that this subframe is prepped for powder coat, all the holes are repaired and ready to go, and my fuel tank is clean, that is going to be it for this episode. In the next episode, I am going to be working on the rear diff over here, going to pull it apart and make sure everything in there looks somewhat normal. If anything's out of spec, try to fix that. So that's it for this one, guys. See you on the next one.